Caitlin, I know that you're only a second-year player and still really young, but I was just curious about, do you think it's important for you individually to voice your thoughts publicly on what you think are priorities?
What happens when a rookie superstar decides she's had enough? What happens when the league built on her rise dares to ignore her value?
And your thoughts on like the next CBA?
I think absolutely, and I think Fee would tell you a lot of the people in that room, probably half of them were.
Looks like the WNBA is teetering on the brink of its biggest showdown yet. Negotiations for the new collective bargaining agreement have collapsed in spectacular fashion, and emotions are flaring like a fourth-quarter buzzer beater. Front and center in this whirlwind is Caitlin Clark, the fresh-faced phenom whose name sells out arenas and fills TV screens. Her rookie card is more valuable than ever, and now she's using that fiery leverage to demand more than a pat on the back.
Maybe not half, but a good amount of them were either my age or, we even had rookies in the room too. So I think we all have a good understanding of this is very important for our future.
Inside a drab meeting room, league officials sat across from the WNBA reps, stone-faced and unyielding. They had printed their latest counteroffer in crisp type, numbers that looked smaller than a junior varsity lineup. Salaries barely edged upward, travel still on commercial flights, and revenue sharing that favored owners like a rigged carnival game. The players felt insulted. And the star power in the room? Caitlin Clark, silent but deadly, her mere presence speaking volumes.
The future of the league, for the futures of our careers, but obviously there's a good amount of older players too that have been in this league a really long time and are excited about the future of where it's going to.
News cameras outside caught glimpses of Clark's steely gaze as she stepped inside. She didn't clap or cheer. She didn't wave hello. She simply walked in, shoulders squared, ready to watch the league that built itself on her highlight reels stumble when she asked for what she earned. You could almost hear the collective gasp of fans nationwide. She's here for real.
Continue to go, and they've been fighting for change at the same time. So I think in the room there was a great balance of these young stars, but also these vets that have been advocating for the third.
From the outside, it felt like a spectacle. Fans crowded social feeds with memes of Clark shrugging in a suit. Pundits scrambled to label her the CBA queen, while skeptics wondered whether a first-year player could truly move the needle. But anyone with a shred of sense knew, without Clark, the WNBA's surging momentum cracked like thin ice under a heavy tip-off. Negotiations dragged on past schedule. The clock ticked closer to October 31st, the hard deadline when the old CBA expires. Owners whispered threats of a lockout. Players muttered strike over cups of coffee. And through it all, Clark stood unmoved. She didn't need to speak. Every camera flash, every raised eyebrow spoke louder than words ever could.
Next question, row 3 in the center.
Annie Costable, Front Office Sports. This one's for you, Caitlin. Where does your W salary stack up against your deals with State Farm?
When league negotiators finally opened their mouths, it was to recite a swollen media rights deal and expansion fees that sounded impressive. $2 billion, $200 million, 0 cents here, $250 million, 0 cents there, yet still refused to lift base pay or guarantee charter travel. Fans read those headlines and cheered the big numbers, but players looked at each other and asked, "Where's our cut?" The disconnect couldn't have been clearer if it were painted in neon on the court floor. Roster sizes and developmental slots remained frozen. Health benefits barely budged. Players watched executives toast champagne over deals they barely saw a cent of. Burnout soared, injuries piled up, and morale slid faster than a fast break dunk. Still, the league dug its heels in, offering token pay bumps and lip service filler that any half-decent negotiator would have thrown out.
Gatorade, Nike.
It's a good question. Honestly, I feel like that's where we're really fortunate, is that we have those other deals.
Meanwhile, Clark's off-court empire ballooned. Jersey sales exploded. Social media followers tripled. Even rival leagues in Europe and Asia eyed her for blockbuster guest appearances. Her face was plastered on billboards, her name trended on every sports ticker, yet her WNBA paycheck still hovered just above 6 figures. The irony was brutal. At All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, more than 40 players, All-Stars, veterans, rookies, gathered in Union solidarity. It was the largest show of force in WNBPA history. The air buzzed with hope. Maybe this time the league would bite. But when negotiators arrived, they carried the same old playbook, one that never read the room. The squad left feeling brushed aside, disrespected, and more determined than ever.
And I think that's one of the things that we're in the room fighting for, like Fee said, is, we should be paid more, and hopefully that's the case moving forward as the league continues to grow. I think that's something that's probably...
Clark wasn't meant to be there. She held no official role, no voting power. She was just the rookie phenom whose name the league used in every promo. Yet she showed up. Front row, eyes locked on the table. She nodded at each proposal but never flinched. Players whispered, "If she stands firm, we stand firm." It was a silent pact.
All-Star Weekend is notoriously a very fun weekend for both the players and people who come, and we've seen through live streams and videos that you guys are having way more fun and staying out.
Talks ran an hour behind schedule. League reps offered vague promises of future discussions and finding common ground, but nothing concrete. Clark leaned back, arms crossed, watching the clock like it was a three-point shot ticking down. The message was clear. Time is running out, and you're running out of excuses. When the meeting ended, the WNBPA statement was merciless. They called the offer a slap in the face and warned that without swift change, a work stoppage loomed. Social feeds lit up as fans used 100% right to show Clark and her teammates their backing. The pressure skyrocketed. A lockout or strike in the WNBA is uncharted territory. Owners fear canceled games, lost TV revenue, and a shattered fan base. Players dread missing prime campaigns, endorsements drying up, and a tarnished legacy. But for Clark, it's personal. This is the league that handed her the key to a kingdom. Now it's asking her to beg for a fair share.
The whole press conference, I guess.
And staying out a little bit more late than you may have anticipated. What is some of the messaging?
What if we do that normally? You just never saw it.
That's true.
Deep down, every exec knows, without Clark, their shiny new TV deal loses its luster. Advertisers would balk, sponsors would pause. Teams built on her drawing power would see arenas half empty. And that October 31st date isn't a suggestion. It's a cliff edge. No deal, no season. Tomorrow, negotiators will reconvene. But the mood has shifted. The players have tasted collective strength. Clark's silent stare became the union's rallying cry. And unless the league wakes up, they'll face the fiercest uprising the WNBA has ever seen. Negotiations resumed the next morning, but the atmosphere felt heavier than a championship trophy. League negotiators arrived with the same playbook, pages dog-eared by years of incremental tweaks. They spoke of long-term vision and strategic growth, yet offered nothing but crumbs for the women fueling the boom. Across the table, players leaned forward, eyes blazing with conviction. Clark sat at the center, radiating calm fury like a storm about to break.
True. That's true. Making 7 a.m.
I'm not speaking for Fee, but
7 a.m. shoot around is nothing.
there was no shoot-arounds today.
Yeah.
Both teams
The union's core demands were clear and reasonable. They asked for a revenue-sharing model tied directly to ticket sales, merchandise, and media deals, not a lump sum that vanishes into league overhead. They insisted on charter flights to preserve their bodies through grueling schedules. They wanted a soft salary cap that allowed teams to retain top talent rather than bench them for bottom-line savings. And they aimed to expand rosters, creating development slots so rookies could learn without risking burnout. These weren't wild ideas, they were basic hallmarks of any major professional league. Yet the league's response read like a relic from the 1990s. We must protect franchise viability, they argued, as if playing financial victim while selling franchises for $250 million each. We need to maintain competitive balance, they insisted, even though teams were already competing for top talent abroad. Resistance felt knee-jerk, as though they feared empowering their own product. Clark's lips pressed into a thin line as another exec prattled on about theoretical cost projections. She shook her head once, an almost imperceptible gesture that spoke louder than any speech.
cancel.
I heard. I got the email. As captains, what type of messaging are you guys sending to your players about
Social media erupted. Fans flooded Twitter with screenshots of league talking points next to players' demands. They saw empty promises juxtaposed against Caitlin Clark's highlight dunks and game-winning shots. Memes of league icons dodging a speeding basketball flew across feeds. The disconnect between glossy PR and gritty player realities was impossible to ignore. From living rooms to coffee shops, supporters debated one question: how could a league built on these athletes refuse to back their basic needs? Behind closed doors, veteran stars recount moments that stung. One spoke of a dazzling home opener where the scoreboard flashed record attendance, and then she boarded a cramped commercial jet back home. Another described missing her daughter's recital because she feared injury if a charter fell through. Liv Clark, ever the rookie, absorbed these stories, her jaw tightening at each vivid detail. No amount of endorsement cash could erase the indignity of scrambling through airport security after a triple-double performance.
Balance and just making sure you are still wanting to get the win.
I mean, I told my team, have as much fun as possible. At practice, we just shot.
By midday, whispers of a strike began to spread. Players joked about walking off the court mid-game, then paused as the reality sank in. An unprecedented work stoppage would shake the league's foundations. Owners would lose millions, TV partners would balk, sponsors would hesitate, yet the looming threat galvanized the room more than any speech ever could. They weren't bluffing. This time, they held all the cards, especially Clark, whose jersey sales alone eclipsed many small markets' annual revenues. Meanwhile, league PR launched a counteroffensive. They flooded local news with interviews praising our growing family and shared goals. They framed the debate as a misunderstanding between two sides working toward harmony, yet they refused to publish the actual proposals. Fans compared that to praising transparency with a locked safe. Clark supporters demanded to see the numbers. When the league offered a sanitized summary, union reps scoffed and refused to sign off. They wanted full disclosure or no deal.
A little bit, and then we shot a half-court shot and we headed out. But, I mean, like, that's All-Star Weekend. Like, we joke about winning, but at the end of the day, like, it's not that serious. Like, we're going to have a fun.
The off-court pundits scrambled to weigh in. Some argued the league needed to tighten belts during economic headwinds. Others claimed players were asking for too much, too soon. But the smartest voices saw through the noise. They pointed out that WNBA revenues had doubled in 2 years, attendance soared, and sponsor bids skyrocketed. To the public, it looked like a simple equation. Booming profits deserved fairer splits. The only question was whether the league could let go of old guard mentalities and embrace its modern reality. Back at the bargaining table, frustration simmered. League negotiators kept trying small concessions, an extra million here, a token charter flight there, but never tackled the big structural issues. Players balked at piecemeal gestures that dodged the system's flaws. One union rep slammed her hand on the table, rattling coffee cups, and declared that half measures wouldn't cut it. Clark watched that moment in slow motion, feeling the room pulse with urgency. She realized that if they settled now, they'd be back here in 4 years with the same excuses.
One time, and I feel like for me it's a little bit of a unique perspective because my first All-Star game was versus Team USA. Like, it was a little more serious just to help them prepare for the Olympics. So
by late afternoon, talks collapsed again. League officials walked out, their tone shifting from negotiation to public relations spin. The union issued a statement accusing the league of bad faith bargaining. They warned that unless the owners returned with real progress, the players would strike on opening night. Headlines screamed, "First WNBA strike looms," and "Caitlin Clark at center of labor, fight." It was a surreal scene, a league craving growth, on the verge of self-destruction because it refused to invest in its essential talent. That evening, players gathered at a team hotel for an emergency meeting. Emotions ran hot. Veterans recounted past battles for basic respect. Rookies felt the weight of potential history in the making. Clark spoke last, her voice low but resolute. They had come too far, earned too much, and thrilled too many fans to back down now. She didn't threaten consequences, she articulated possibilities. A league where athletes prospered alongside owners, where fans saw their heroes valued on and off the court. Her words felt like an electric charge that realigned every spine in the room.
this one, I would say, like, the actual play-wise is a little more laid back and a little more fun, but it's been cool just to see, you know, everything that's been going on and how much everybody's enjoying it.
The next day, league and union leaders reconvened, but the tone had shifted irreversibly. Players arrived with unity and a clear mandate. No small fixes, no half-baked promises. Negotiators sensed a new risk, an all-out strike that could derail seasons and investments alike. Media outlets teetered between skepticism and support, but Clark's presence in every headline made it impossible to ignore the stakes. Owners finally realized that this rookie wasn't playing games. In a rare moment of concession, a lead negotiator acknowledged the need for meaningful revenue sharing and expanded charter travel, but offered no timeline or guarantees. Union reps shot back that vague commitments held no value. Clark leaned forward and asked for specifics, percentages, dates, enforceable clauses. Silence filled the room. Owners resisted, claiming market uncertainty. Players pointed to the $2.2 billion 0 cents deal and franchise fees as proof of stability. The impasse deepened.
Yeah. I mean, exactly the same. I wasn't telling them anything about preparing for the game. We were preparing to be on stud buds.
By late afternoon, talks stalled once more. The union announced an official strike date time for the first preseason game. Fans reacted with a mix of awe and apprehension. Social media buzzed. Would the first ever WNBA strike energize the movement or fracture the community? Sponsors issued cautious statements. TV partners threatened to pull coverage. And all the while, Caitlin Clark trained in a quiet gym, her mind on more than jump shots. She was picturing empty arenas and silent courts.
We talked about, just how excited you were to play in this game, but then I was talking to all your all-stars yesterday about how it's important to get healthy too. So how are you feeling physically, and can you maximize this week?
Behind the scenes, league executives scrambled to craft a draft statement that wouldn't look like capitulation. They rehearsed messages about shared disappointment and continued dialogue. But when cameras rolled, their words rang hollow. Players and fans tuned out the spin, hungry instead for real change. Every soundbite felt like a rerun of a broken record. Negotiations that once seemed routine had erupted into a full-blown labor fight, and neither side showed signs of backing down. As evening fell, Clark retreated to her hotel room. She reflected on her journey, from college phenom to WNBA rookie to labor linchpin. She never asked for this role, but she understood its weight. If she walked away now, fans would feel betrayed. If she capitulated, future generations would suffer. She stared at her reflection, muscles still buzzing from practice, and steeled herself for what lay ahead. In that moment, she wasn't just Caitlin Clark the athlete. She was Caitlin Clark the catalyst. Tomorrow marked the union's strike deadline. League officials faced a choice: compromise or chaos. Either they returned with a real offer, or they watched the court go dark. And somewhere in that mix of risk and reward stood the true power broker, a rookie whose name sold out stadiums and redefined a sport. The ball was in the league's hands now. They had until dawn to decide whether they valued their stars enough to fight for them.